There are places the world tries to forget, places where the past lingers in every shadow, and where silence weighs heavier than the stones themselves. Tonight, we leave behind the crowded streets of Venice and cross into forbidden territory, Poveglia Island. Once a peaceful refuge, now a name spoken only in whispers, Poveglia has witnessed centuries of suffering, from plague victims buried in mass graves to the cries that echoed through its abandoned asylum. What really happened on this island? Do the stories of restless spirits and haunted ruins hold any truth? Or are they echoes of a history too dark to remember? Join me as we investigate the facts, confront the legends, and ask what it truly means for a place to be haunted, not just by ghosts, but by the memories of those who were never allowed to leave. Welcome to Lost Souls Abroad. This is Poveglia Island. Venice awakens to the gentle hush of water against stone, its canals alive with the echoes of centuries past. But beyond the city's gilded facades and bustling piazzas, there is a place the world has tried to erase. A place where history's shadows gather, and silence weighs heavy as the mist. The journey to Poveglia begins not with a map, but with a question. What secrets linger on an island abandoned by the living, yet never truly left behind? As our boat slips away from the safety of Venice, the city's warmth fades into memory. The horizon narrows, and the air grows colder, thick with the scent of brine and decaying leaves. Locals speak of Poveglia in hushed tones. To some, it is cursed, an island of lost souls and restless spirits. To others, it is simply forbidden, sealed off by law and legend alike. But every story, no matter how deeply buried, leaves traces. And every place haunted by the past waits for someone willing to listen. Tonight, we do more than chase ghost stories. We cross into forbidden territory, seeking the truth behind the legends, a truth written in stone, water, and the memories of those who never left. Step lightly. The ground here is sacred and scarred, layered with centuries of sorrow and silence. As we set foot on Poveglia, we stand at the threshold of history, where every breath, every shadow, every echo might be a memory waiting to be found. Long before Poveglia became a name to fear, it was simply one of many small islands scattered across the Venetian lagoon. In the beginning, it was a quiet refuge, a sliver of land where fishermen cast their nets, and farmers tended to small plots of earth. Life here moved with the rhythm of the tides, shaped by the gentle persistence of wind and water. But peace in Venice was always fragile. As the city's fortunes grew, so did its anxieties. The lagoon became not just a barrier, but a boundary between the living and the unknown. Poveglia's isolation, once a blessing, soon made it a convenient place to send those the city wished to keep at a distance. Over time, the island's fate shifted with each new crisis. It sheltered refugees during wars, offered sanctuary to the displaced, and then, with the turning of history's wheel, was abandoned again and again. Each wave of people left behind their hopes, their fears, and their secrets, layering the soil with memories that would never quite fade. By the dawn of the 14th century, Poveglia was already a place of exile. Its quiet shores bore silent witness to sorrow and survival, carrying the weight of stories that rarely found their way back to the city's crowded squares. But the darkest chapter was yet to come, a chapter that would transform Poveglia from a forgotten outpost into a name spoken only in whispers. Poveglia's transformation from a quiet island to a place of dread began in 1347, during the outbreak of the Black Death. The bubonic plague, brought to Venice by merchant ships, spread rapidly through the city's dense population. With no cure and little understanding of the disease, Venetian authorities responded with strict quarantine measures. Poveglia was selected as one of several lazarettos, quarantine islands, used to isolate those suspected of carrying the plague. Over the following decades, and again during later outbreaks, thousands of men, women, and children were forcibly relocated here. For most, the journey to Poveglia was a death sentence. The sick and the exposed were left to die together, far from the city's protection. Historical records and archaeological investigations estimate that more than 100,000 people died on the island during these years. Bodies were often burned in open pits or buried in mass graves. Over time, the soil itself became mixed with human ash and bone. Even today, fishermen report finding remains in their nets after storms. First-hand accounts from the era, though rare, describe the fear and isolation experienced by those sent to Poveglia. Survivors spoke of the overwhelming silence, interrupted only by the cries of the dying and the ever-present smoke from funeral pyres. The psychological impact of this forced exile left scars not just on the individuals, but on the collective memory of Venice. Poveglia's reputation as a place of suffering and death was cemented during these plague years. The island's name became synonymous with despair, and its story was passed down through generations as a warning, a reminder of how quickly life could be upended by forces beyond human control. After the threat of plague subsided, Poveglia remained largely uninhabited for centuries. Its reputation as a place of mass suffering and death lingered, and the island was avoided by most Venetians. However, in the early 20th century, Poveglia's story took a new turn. In 1922, the Italian government repurposed the island's existing structures to create a psychiatric hospital. The decision was practical. Poveglia's isolation made it ideal for containing those considered mentally ill or otherwise unfit for society. The hospital operated for several decades, and during this time, the island's legacy of isolation and despair deepened. Patients at the asylum were often subjected to the standard treatments of the era, which included electroconvulsive therapy, isolation, and, in some cases, crude surgical procedures such as lobotomies. Historical records from the hospital are limited, but reports from former staff and local residents suggest that conditions were harsh and resources were scarce. The stigma attached to mental illness at the time meant that many patients were left without family visits or outside contact. One story that has persisted in local legend is that of the hospital's head doctor. According to accounts passed down through the years, this doctor was rumored to have performed unauthorized experiments on patients in the hospital's upper floors. The most infamous tale claims that he eventually succumbed to madness himself and either jumped or was pushed from the bell tower, dying on the island's grounds. By the late 1960s, the psychiatric hospital was closed. The buildings were abandoned, left to decay in the salt air and creeping vegetation. With the end of the asylum era, Poveglia was once again sealed off from the public. The Italian government declared the island off limits, citing safety concerns due to unstable structures and environmental hazards. The legacy of the asylum period added new layers to Poveglia's infamy. Stories of mistreatment, suffering, and unexplained deaths contributed to the island's reputation as one of the most haunted places in Italy. For many, the silence and emptiness that followed the hospital's closure only intensified the sense that Poveglia was a place where pain and sorrow lingered long after the last patient was gone. Poveglia's reputation as a place of suffering did not end with its abandonment. Over the years, stories of unexplained phenomena began to circulate, both among locals and those who dared to visit the island illegally. These accounts have become central to the island's modern identity, transforming it from a historical site into one of the world's most infamous haunted locations. Local residents and fishermen have long reported a reluctance to approach Poveglia. Many claim to have seen shadowy figures moving among the deserted buildings or standing silently along the shoreline at dusk. These sightings are often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature and an overwhelming sense of dread. One of the most persistent legends involves the bell tower, which remains one of the island's most recognizable structures. Although the bell itself was removed decades ago, several witnesses have reported hearing its toll echoing across the lagoon, usually late at night or during heavy fog. Some believe these phantom chimes are a warning, while others see them as a call from the lost souls of the island. There are also numerous accounts from illegal visitors and urban explorers. Many describe hearing disembodied voices, sometimes whispering, sometimes crying out in pain. Others report being physically touched, scratched, or shoved by unseen forces. Some have left the island with unexplained bruises or scratches, convinced they encountered something not of this world. A particularly chilling story centers on the spirit of the asylum's head doctor. According to legend, his ghost still haunts the bell tower, where he met his end. Visitors claim to feel an intense pressure or a sense of panic when near the tower, and some have reported seeing a shadowy figure watching them from above. Fishermen, too, have their stories. Some say their boats have been followed by strange lights on the water. Others claim to have heard voices calling out from the island, especially on quiet nights when the wind is still. For many, these experiences are enough to keep them far from Poveglia's shores. Despite, or perhaps because of these stories, Poveglia has become a magnet for paranormal investigators and thrill-seekers. Some arrive skeptical, but leave convinced that the island is home to forces beyond explanation. The combination of tragic history and persistent legend has ensured that Poveglia's reputation as a place of restless spirits endures. The stories and legends surrounding Poveglia Island all return to a central motif: lost souls. For centuries, the island has been a final destination for people who died unnamed, unclaimed, or unjustly. From plague victims buried in mass graves to patients who perished in the asylum, Poveglia is a place defined by lives cut short and stories left unfinished. The concept of lost souls resonates deeply in the local culture. In Venice and the surrounding region, it's widely believed that those who die in fear, pain, or isolation are at greater risk of becoming restless spirits. On Poveglia, these beliefs are amplified by the sheer scale of suffering that occurred there. The mass graves, the abandoned hospital wards, and the silence that now hangs over the island all serve as reminders of the thousands who were never given a proper farewell. Many believe that the souls of Poveglia remain tethered to the island, unable to move on. Some accounts describe a pervasive sense of sadness or heaviness upon setting foot there, as if the very air is thick with grief. Others have reported feeling watched or experiencing sudden, inexplicable waves of emotion, fear, sorrow, even anger, while exploring the ruins. Paranormal investigators often speak of residual energy, a kind of spiritual imprint left behind by traumatic events. On Poveglia, this idea takes on a tangible quality. The boundaries between past and present feel blurred, and visitors frequently describe the sensation that the island itself is alive with memory. Some theorize that the restless spirits are searching for closure, justice, or simply acknowledgement of their suffering. These stories raise difficult questions. What keeps a soul bound to a place of tragedy? Is it unfinished business? The lack of a proper burial? Or the collective weight of so many lives ended in despair? And can anything be done to bring peace to the lost souls of Poveglia, or are some places and some spirits destined to remain in limbo? Poveglia stands silent now, its ruins slowly reclaimed by nature, its stories echoing across the lagoon. Yet the island's legacy is far from forgotten. The questions it raises, about suffering, memory, and the possibility of restless spirits, continue to captivate and unsettle all who learn its history. What does it mean for a place to carry the weight of so many unnamed and unclaimed souls? Can the echoes of tragedy linger for centuries, shaping not just legend, but the very atmosphere of a place? Or is the fear we feel in places like Poveglia a reflection of our own anxieties about death, isolation, and the unknown? These are questions without easy answers, but they remind us that history is not just dates and events. It is lived experience, often marked by pain and longing for closure. Poveglia's story is a testament to the lives that ended in silence and to the enduring power of memory. Have you ever visited a place that felt heavy with history, or sensed something you couldn't explain? Share your thoughts, stories, or personal experiences in the comments below. If you have your own encounters with haunted places, let's talk about them. What do you think becomes of lost souls, and can anything truly set them free? This has been Tyler. Thanks for joining me on this chilling exploration of the lost souls of Poveglia. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us for more chilling adventures. Until next time, stay curious and stay creepy. Bye for now.